why do you need a table saw sled, and what can you do with a table saw sled? The main reason for having a table saw sled is that you have runners that run on both tracks of your table saw, and allows you to cut completely square pieces of wood every time. Let's say you want to get a square piece of wood really easily. Well, to do that, first you need to square off two sides. To do that, I can use the table saw sled and get one perfectly square side. Now I know this is nice and flat, and I know that my fence is square with the blade, so I can put that flat side up against the fence and I'll make the second cut. This table saw sled has a sliding stop block, so say I wanted to have a square that was, well, that big, I would just clamp it down and run it through. Now you can see where this is going. I'll just flip it around like that and I can square it all up. Now of course you don't have to use the table saw sled for making just square boards. You can use them for rectangles or whatever you want. What it's useful for is cutting perfect 90-degree angles every time, and you can do lots of them at the same time because I've incorporated the stop block into this table saw sled. So it's been about a month since I shot my Halloween video, and I'm still finding Caro syrup blood all over things. It's like sticky everywhere. Anyways, I cut down, I did a rough cut here, cut down, hey, rough cut. That's why these I was using during my rough cut segment. Blood. Anyways, here's my rough cut piece. This is 16 inches by 28 inches. And as you can see, that is way smaller than my old table saw sled, but I think this will make a nice addition to my shop. I'm going to cut out two strips for the front and the back fence. Each of them is 3 inches wide. And while I have my fence set up, without having to move it, I'm going to cut a strip out of 1/4-inch plywood. Now I've got my back fence, which will go on like that, and this will be my front fence with the 3/4-inch plywood and the 1/4-inch plywood that I'm going to use that to make a sliding track for the stop block. Let me show you what I'm going to do about that stop block. I'm going to work up a system like my drill press table where I've got 3/4-inch plywood with a groove, and then it's got 1/4-inch plywood on top with a smaller groove in which a T-bolt can slide. And I'm going to do that first groove on the front fence using a 3/4-inch router bit on my router. So that gives me this shallow groove, or dado, in which the T bolt will fit in just like that. I'm applying some glue outside of that groove that I'll put the 1/4-inch plywood on. Just make sure I don't get glue inside that groove. Now I'll just take that 1/4-inch plywood and glue it on there, making sure that it's nice and flush. That's glued up, and now you can see what I've got here is the 1/4-inch plywood panel here, and I've got that slot in there that this will fit. Well, of course, now I need to cut a little bitty groove, a 1/4-inch groove that the bolt can fit into. And I'm just going to use my just regular table saw blade, and I'll just make a couple of passes through there. Now you can see what's going on here. I've got the little T-slot cut, and my T-bolt will fit in just like that. I used 1/4-inch plywood for my runners, and they will sit into those slots just like that. You want to find something that's going to lift these runners up out of these slots a little bit. Normally you could probably use coins, a dime or something, but my slots are really narrow, so actually a dime is too big. So anyways, I found some nuts that I can just place in there. Then I can place my runner in there, and that gets it lifted up just a little bit higher than the table so I can glue it onto the sled. I'm putting a little bit of glue on each of the runners. I've set up my rip fence to be square with my blade, at least as square as I can. And now all I'm going to do is push this bottom piece to the sled against the fence, and I'll just drop it down onto those runners. Now, if you look up a lot of plans for table saw sleds, they usually have you put the fences on before you do this procedure. But I'm going to try it a different way because I think I can get the blade more square to the fence by first putting on the runners. Alright, so I've taken out the nut and it slides really nicely. Now I just need to cut off these runners. With this base in here and it's sliding nicely, I'm going to try to find about the center point of where the blade will lift. I'm going to turn on the saw and gently raise it up. Now I'm going to glue this front fence to the base. And what I've done is I've set up this square here to make sure that it's square to the blade. And I haven't taken the base out yet. It's just still sitting there. And I used the same method to glue on this back fence. Next, I took a couple of pieces of MDF and glued those together just to make a stop block. Drilled kind of an oversized hole in it. And so let's see, as you can see, that will slide into the track like so. And then I can tighten it down wherever I need it. I've cut 2 3/4 inch strips to use as braces, and to get those lined up I will just square it up to the front fence. And there they are, glued down with screws in them to hold them together, and that's just going to give it some added support so that it doesn't sag or anything once this is cut through. And yeah, I guess aesthetically speaking, these could have probably been thinner and they would have looked nicer, but this ain't going to win any beauty contests. Now I can finally make my cut all the way through. So I've lifted up my saw blade, and here we go. Now I can actually cut my first board on this, which is going to be useful because I need to make a blade guard on the back. I've made my blade guard, and it's just 3 pieces of wood glued together, and the whole purpose of that is just really to keep your hands away from the blade, and actually both braces work the same way to keep you nice and safe. And the smaller size table saw sled is complete. I think it's going to work out really nicely. One thing you might want to do, well, one thing I will do, is apply some paste wax to these runners and make sure these are cleaned out, and it'll run through really smoothly every time. It's a really useful project if you've got a table saw, and especially if you've got a really cheap table saw like mine. You really need a table saw sled. Thanks for watching this video. Visit me at woodworkingformeremortals.com, on Facebook and Twitter, and well, I'm everywhere. I think that's it. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later.